So if you're anything like me, the guest just left, right? Thanksgiving is pretty much over. You're on the mend, still some football on TV, but you're thinking, man, I wish there was something I could do. Maybe there's people around to play games with, sure, but what if it's just you? What if it's just you and the family and they're just chilling, really, just resting? You think, I'm about to slip into a tryptophan-based coma, or maybe I should do something productive. Well, that's what you should do. Grab a cup of coffee and a slice of pecan pie. Actually, don't do the coffee. Your hands will be shaky for this video, but grab whatever you want to grab and come check it out. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about painting rebellion. Rebellion. Are those the tiny ones? Like you surely mean Imperial Assault. No. I mean Rebellion. Full disclosure, this is Bryan Drake. Sorry if I didn't introduce myself. This is Bryan Drake with the Dice Tower here. Before I started doing video reviews and all that stuff, I bankrolled my hobby. Not that I make money doing that, but I shouldn't say it like that, but I bankrolled my hobby by doing painting Star Wars Imperial Assault and things like that and selling them, right? You know, just to kind of make some cash for the hobby. I would do them as commissions. However, this was my biggest seller. Star Wars Rebellion was my absolute biggest seller, is my biggest seller still. And the way it works is there's a beautiful secret about Star Wars Rebellion. First of all, you get these and you look at them and you go, I know this is the expansion. You get these and you go, wow, they're just kind of plastic pieces that look kind of like this, right? They're gray, they're beige, they don't really have a lot of character to them. Nicely sculpted to be so small, but I just wish it looked better on the table. That's what I'm here to teach you to do. How to make your pieces pop on the table with little skill at all, with just a few paints. You can tell I'm not that organized, right? I know I don't have a paint rack and all that stuff. I have a bucket and the paints sit on their sides and you shake them up enough, it doesn't matter. My brushes look like garbage sometimes. Some of you would say, Bryan, you're disrespecting the hobby. You're not taking it seriously enough. We paint plastic Star Wars pieces. Is there anything that really needs to be taken that seriously? I mean, come on, you know? So let's talk about right now what you can do first to make your pieces pop and look like $1 million on the tabletop right now. First thing, primer. These are cheap primers. You notice they're not Citadel primers, right? These are cheap Walmart primers. Well, they're $3 primers. How about that versus $14 or $10 primers? This is Rust-Oleum double cover primer, white. And this is a light gray from Valspar. I think Lowe's is a Valspar brand. Notice it's a light gray though. There's a reason I do this. Back when I first started, you could take a lot of time by having to prime the gray figures and then paint like Celestra gray, like a light gray over them. Well, I found a light enough gray color that actually pretty much is, you know, Star Destroyer gray. And it really works good for Death Stars and all that sort of stuff. And then the other main thing you're going to need to make things pop a lot is Nuln Oil or any kind of black wash shade, which you can get from your hobby shop or anything like that. Let's talk about priming. We'll talk about the steps for Stormtrooper and one of the new TIE Fighters and U-Wings and stuff from this set right now. So these are the figures we're going to be taking a look at. We've got our Y-Wing from the base set, our U-Wing from the expansion, this TIE from the expansion, the Stormtrooper from the base set, and then the Mon Calamari Cruiser from the base set as well. What we're going to do is we're going to show you how these pieces, just right now, they're primed. Obviously, these pieces all get primed in white. The TIEs, the Star Destroyers, the Death Stars, and a few other things get primed in gray. And you just do that. You do everything as a set. So I call them my gray pieces and my white pieces. So you get them primed like this. And what we're going to start with is with the TIE, because the prime is already a little drier on it. So you can pour this in a pot over here. You can pour it in your palette, or you can just take it straight from here. Just get a little bit of this black Nuln Oil. This is a wash. It's a little bit pricey. It's a Citadel product, but it does the best job I've seen. Get it on the brush, and I usually give a pretty heavy wash. And I'm sorry, my hand's in the way there, but I'm just going to take it and brush that on to this figure. Just like this. Notice how it fills in the cracks and just makes it come to life already, right? Just having that on there is enough to make it really come to life. We get a little bit more black on here. I'll show you. Just get it on there enough. Let it pool in those shadows. Nothing wrong with a little heavy wash here. I sound like Bob Ross there. You can do whatever you want, just your happy little wash. But you get a little bit of wash in there, let it pool a little bit. This is going to dry naturally. You'd be doing this in a batch. You'd be doing them all at one time. But this is what it looks like as it's kind of drying here. So it looks really heavy washed on there. Let it pool in those creases. That creates a natural shade and a natural shadow, which also creates kind of a border for you to paint to in just a minute. We'll come back to that in a minute once these dry. So let's look at what you do with the U-Wing and the Y-Wing to really make them pop first before you can take the next step. So for the U-Wing, I use Celador Sky for my blue from Citadel. Anything blue that you like, Walmart paint will work. And you're gonna do a couple things. Now, this is a little knacky. It's actually a tricky technique. You're gonna wanna take a fine tip brush. You're gonna wanna get some blue paint on it. I'm gonna get it on the sides here. And the way I do this, I just kind of run across the edge sidelong like this. Now, the stuff on the sides you really can't see, especially from the top of the table. So it's okay if you see that. You just kind of smooth off the fronts here, get a nice little point. Do the same on this side, just like that. Make it match up on the length. Just scraping your brush down the side to get blue on there, right? Just like that. You then, based on some different concept art, there's a couple different concept arts, I put a piece of blue right here, just on the front, right there. And you say, Brian, that doesn't look very smooth. You're right. But when you see this wash get on there, you'll see what it does. It kind of transforms all your errors into okays. So then you kind of just put a little bit more here is what I do based on concept art again. And then just on this foil right here, it's not really a foil, I don't know what it's called. I guess it's a turbine or an engine. Put a little bit more blue up on there. Just like that. And that's it. Now, you could almost be done from here. You could say, from the tabletop, you could be happy with that. But I'm gonna show you what this wash does in a minute. Now, for the Y-wing, I do it a little bit differently. Start with a little bit of Mechanicus gray, which is, kind of your standard light gray in the palette right over here. So I get a little bit of this. I do the edges here, cover them all the way up because we're gonna put some gold over the tip of that. Just like that. Cover those two tips, or those shoulders really. And then I'm gonna let that dry for a second. We'll put some, I use Flash Gets Yellow. It's a bright pigment yellow to kind of do this part here. And you're gonna make a bit of a, again, based on any concept art you want, I just do the yellow from the Gold Squadron. I just kind of make a Y shape here. Some of you would be like, Brian, that's not what Y-wings look like. Well, that's fine, I could be wrong. And then in a second, we're gonna put some yellow here as well, just on the tips of these shoulders. And we're gonna go from there. I'll show you what that looks like right now. Now I know one of you has got the Dorling Kinzardly Encyclopedia of Star Wars out there fact checking me on these colors, but it's what I looked at on the concept art when I first started, and it's kind of what I've just stuck with ever since. And then put the yellow on the shoulders like that, and that's it, right? Again, you could pass for that, and that would be okay, right? There's nothing wrong with that. We'll let that dry, and we'll put the wash on it. The U-wing is actually dry enough to go ahead and do the wash on. We'll do kind of the same process. Shake up my wash, get a little bit on the brush here. We're just gonna kind of heavily wash it over it. So you just kind of let it pool in. Definitely let it pool in the window there. That's one important thing. If you can see how it makes that puddle in the window. See what it does? It fills in all these cracks that Fantasy Flight was so clever to sculpt the model with. This is a tiny, teeny model, yet this model has a lot of detail. So as soon as you hit these spots with that wash, you just see it instantly turning to life right in front of your face. And this is it. I mean, this is the last step. We're gonna put a little bit of a red jet propulsion on the back of the foils, or the, whatever those are called, the engines. But I mean, you just saw it happen right there. It literally pops into life right in front of you. I'll bring it up here to the camera a little bit where you can see it. But you remember seeing what it looked like before, and now look at this. It brings it to life just right in front of your face, just by putting that wash on there. Again, try to get that. You can add a little black paint there if you want, but it just pops, and this instantly goes from just being a plastic table piece to being a miniature U-wing. It's a beautiful process that just instantly happens when you hit it with that wash. So for jet exhaust, it's not blue. I really like to use a little Wild Rider red. It's kind of a pinkish, orangish red, and it just looks like hot fire. And just that little dot, that's enough on all four of those engines. So when you see this on the table, that's what you're looking at. Now, if you remember what we came from to where we are now, look how easy that was. Little, very, very little work that went into the U-wings. If you want to break this down into a night where you paint your U-wings, you paint your TIE fighters or something like that, you then piece your ships together to where you have a beautiful army or armada on the table just like that. We'll do the same thing with the Y-wing. Now the Y-wing, I typically give 2 coats of the wash because I like the Y-wing so look, it'll beat up and dirty. I don't know if that's accurate either. You guys can bust my chops some more on that. Give it just a little bit more yellow here on these shoulders, just to make that really nice and poppy there. And then I think I also hit the cockpit on the Y-wing. I think I hit the cockpit gray, but actually I don't remember if I do or not. I'm gonna say no this time, and you can go and look at other pictures I've put up here about it. Anyway, let's go ahead, and while those are drying, we're gonna wash the Mon Calamari Cruiser. Basically, just get a nice flat, or a nice wash brush, good size, get some wash on your brush, and I just give this sucker a heavy wash. Now here's the beautiful thing. White primer hit with this heavy wash turns it gray. But not only does it turn it gray, it turns it almost exactly perfectly Mon Calamari Cruiser gray. Like it's exactly the same color that you would get if you went and bought one of these from the junk shop, you know, at your local hardware store. You know, hey, let me get a Mon Calamari Cruiser, and they'd be like, well, we have a few extra. Sorry, that was really corny, I apologize. Anyway, but my point is this. I based this off the Star Wars Armada model, right? When I had it. It's a huge Star Wars Armada model, this. And the gray that I ended up with, just by washing white primed miniatures, turns out perfect. You see that? That's it. That's the work on that. What we're going to do is we're going to come back and we're going to Jackson Pollock that in a minute with just a couple different splashes of color and be done. Let me mix up a little bit of the gray in our Mechanicus gray and black right now to where we get kind of the mixture I'll show you that I use for the rest of the different kind of accent colors for the Stormtrooper and for the foils here, whatever those are called on the TIE Fighter wings right now. So you can do equal parts if you want to, but I don't do equal parts. I actually do more black than gray just to give it, I don't want it to be solid jet black, but I also don't want it to be light gray either. It's kind of a weird thing. I want it to be a nice charcoal. I just haven't found a sufficient color, or I haven't bought a sufficient color to make that happen. So I put enough of this black and enough of this Mechanicus gray so we get a nice mixture. That's actually too dark right there. This is what I'm looking for right here, right there. So that looks very dark. I know it looks black, especially in the shadows of the lights, but it's actually more of a charcoal gray. So what you do then is you take the Stormtrooper and very carefully, you take a small brush and take a big brush. It doesn't quite matter that much. You just hit the gun here, blaster rifle, and then you're going to be really careful with this spot. This is the only part in the entire painting process that you have to be somewhat careful. You're going to hit that visor. Everything else will be done with the shade, but you have to hit the visor to really make this look like a Stormtrooper. You can just drag your brush carefully across, holding it to where you get that visor painted. Once the visor painted, you think, wow, that looks kind of like a clone trooper right now. Wait until we get the wash on and you're going to see how well this turns. I'm trying to get it to focus. Wow, that's annoying. Show you what the Y-wings look like now. Let's get a good heavy solid wash on here. Paint across the wash everywhere onto it and just let it naturally fill in. Again, look at all those things you would never really even see had you not painted them. You don't even notice that much plastic is there covering this figure. And so you're left with this as the paint just gets on there. Look how much more detail this has. It's almost like they knew people would want to paint these. And you look at that and you think, wow, I never would have seen that if I hadn't noticed with the wash. So I promise I'm not being lazy, but I really like my Rebel ships to look junky, because I mean, if you think about it, in the lore of Star Wars, they're kind of junky looking. So I'm okay with a little bit of dark shadows in places on the Y-wings. I'm okay with a little bit of funky looking stuff like that. It makes them look like they're well used. They're older ships, right? That's why the Rebellion has to use them. This is kind of a sleeker model here. It looks a little bit nicer. Got the jet propulsion and everything like that, but you can just see that these ships look worn on purpose. Now, if you want to highlight them up, you could do like a gray, a light gray, but I just like that worn look. It really, to me, feels more thematic of a desperate rebellion versus if you look at how the Imperial ships do, they just kind of pop out there and look really nice. They look like they've been prepared by an empire that's financially stable and all that sort of stuff, which makes you wonder how they lost. All right, our Stormtrooper's ready to go for the wash too. Now, if you've ever painted an Imperial Assault Stormtrooper, this is how I knew I could paint. Whenever, not me as in talent, but that I could actually handle this. It wasn't as hard as it looked. So when you hit this wash to a Stormtrooper, watch what happens. It just instantly transforms from white hunk of plastic to a Star Wars Stormtrooper. I mean, literally right in front of your face. It's like painting magic. It's like you're taking a magic brush from, like, I don't know, Muppet Babies or something like that, and you just hit it, and then look, all these layers of detail, all these things just show up that you never knew were there. Look at that, just a little wash on the back of the helmet. You get the shade, you get the shadow, and that is it. That's all you need to do. You do not have to come back and highlight this guy up. All you have to do is get that painted wash in there. You can do a little bit more if you see spots that need it, but then look at this compared to, again, where we were. This is a fully painted Stormtrooper just by slapping some wash on and hitting that visor. I mean, look, all the little dark spots are there. They just happen naturally from the wash. The eyes kind of form, the mouth even forms, and then you've got a fully painted Stormtrooper versus just a hunk of white plastic or a hunk of gray plastic. Now again, Rogue One was a fine movie, of course, but you know, wasn't my absolute favorite Star Wars movie until that last few minutes, right, when Vader showed up. But these really paint up nicely, and they're some of the best looking pieces in Imperial Assault. I'm sorry, whatever this game's called, Rebellion, just because of what they do. So we're gonna take that gray black mix like we made earlier. We're gonna just drag it into these corners. Requires a little bit of a steady hand up here, but thankfully your wash is already in those tightest spots. And you say, oh, what happens if I paint over it? The beautiful thing is, you're just going to take your fingernail, scratch off anything you paint over onto the foil, and it immediately takes away to that bright gray color. Do it again. Get these, all these just like that. It's really not that hard. There's only 6 of these in the set, in the expansion, so it's not like you're doing this that many times. But the beautiful thing is all you do is take that thumb and wipe off any excess, and it takes care of it for you. Get a little bit more painting, and I'm actually using a horrible brush for this right now. It's split because I didn't take care of it like I should, right guys? But anyway, see this? So we're talking about the difference between this, when this is even after a wash, it's already better than it would be, to this. Something that looks like it looks in the books, in the movies, you know, and all that sort of stuff. Let me finish it up and we'll get a final product here. I don't do any kind of jet propulsion out of the TIE fighters. I don't truly think they have any. So it looks a little something like this. You said, but Brian, what about the insides? What about the undersides? Nothing. I never even touch them because no one's ever going to see that you're playing a top-down board game. Anyway, this is what you're left with right here. This tie piece, it looks amazing compared to what it was. If we can bring that up and still keep it in the light. Get all the accents, all the gray lines, all the dark colored tie areas like that, and then a nice shading on the cockpit. Beautiful little piece, very little work. We're going to come back, we're going to do the Mon Calamari Cruiser, finish this thing up. So for this part of the job, we're going to use just 3 colors. We're going to use a red, a light blue or gray, whatever you want to use. Blends in with my gloves, how cute. And then a yellow. So these are the 3 colors I use. A lot of times I'll switch this out for rust gray, depending on how I'm feeling. That sounded really lame, but based on, you know, kind of what you want to see that day. But right now we're going to use Lothern blue, Mephiston red, and Flash Gets yellow for just the accents. And we're going to go crazy on this thing. All right, so here's where it gets fun with the Mon Calamari Cruiser. We're going to just go crazy and put color splashes everywhere we see fit. Still a little bit of wet wash right there, but that's okay. We're going to avoid that spot anyway. We're going to start with red, and we'll do blue, then we'll do yellow, and just go to town. It'll look something like this. I just pull it straight from the pot too. I don't put it in the palette and water it down because you're using just so very little on the tip of the brush, just a teeny tiny bit right there on the tip of the brush. There's no way it's going to focus on that, but and then you just kind of go across and just slash it in different places, just little slashes of color, just, you know, just kind of everywhere you see fit. If you want to look for a more specific exact thing, you could by pulling up again, you know, the Empire of Star Wars or whatever, Encyclopedia of the Universe of Star Wars or whatever you want to call it. But you know, and see what it should look like, that's fine. Or if you don't want to kill yourself, you could actually just have fun with it, because no one's going to go, I noticed that your 4 o'clock position on your Mon Calamari Cruiser was the wrong color. You chucklehead, you call yourself a fan, you scum and villainous hive, you. Well, as it happens, my blue paint has run dry, so we're going to have to switch over to a different color for that. Brian, you should take better care of your paint so it wouldn't happen. Actually, it was totally dead. I've been limping on the rest of it for a long time. We're going to switch to Stegadon Scale Green. It's got a nice greenish, grayish, bluish color. I know that doesn't make any sense, but we're just going to make the gray blue slashes here. Again, the gray is the least important anyway, considering you've got yellow and red. You're just going to put blobs and slashes of color all over this thing, and you're going to notice that when all 3 colors get on here, you're going to see it just come together, and you're going to go, oh, that makes so much sense. Why I wouldn't want to do a photorealistic one? Because there's so many little spots all over these things. It looks like some kind of, I don't know, Jaguar from the 60s cartoon era. I don't know. Anyway, take the last of our Flash Gets yellow here. Just gonna pop it all over the place like this. Little pieces everywhere. You could use darker yellow if you want, more of a gold color if you want, or you can do these any old way you want. This is yours. You're going to be playing with it, not me. I just do it how I like it, and it seems to be pretty popular. It seems to be pretty nice when you hit the table with it. So again, Just kind of go everywhere with it, get a little few spots, and then you end up with a Mon Calamari cruiser, just like that. Very little work that looks amazing on the table and definitely looks better than the hunk of beige plastic. So that's it. So while it may seem and sound painstaking at first, it's really very simple and very little time involved, especially when you use this wash. That wash just brings everything to life. And the beautiful thing about having figures this small is you do not have to do that much highlighting, which is what makes this such an easy process. I feel like I'm giving away a trade secret here, but it's just so easy. I mean, you paint your stuff in minutes. I mean, I've done an entire rebellion in one session before, and it was a long session. It was a stupid thing to do. I had a deadline, but anyway, regardless. You can do the expansion very quickly. The only thing that slows you down are the Rebel Troopers and the Rebel Commandos. I can't remember what that new figure is called, but the grenade launcher looking thing. They slow you down because they have multiple colors. The good thing about Rebellion is most of these things do not have multiple colors. They're either all gray or all white, with the exception of maybe the Stormtrooper having the black here and the black on his gloves. You just get in the zone, you start listening to music, you watch TV, you put on Netflix or something, just kind of listen to it in the background, and you just paint. You get in the zone, you paint the little black guns, you paint the little black visor, boom, done. Move on, move on, move on. Take the wash them all. You do not even have to highlight them up as Stormtroopers because they're white, but they're white from such a far distance away, it doesn't matter as much, and that gray actually makes them pop really well. Painting the bases is much faster than it seems. And that's it. You have yourself a beautiful set of Star Wars Rebellion that really it deserves to be. I mean, the game's great. It's a fun game. But having those just bland plastic pieces does it a disservice when you can have the best looking figures in the galaxy. So that sounded corny, I'm aware. But that's it. So this is Thanksgiving. Hope you guys enjoyed. Here in the States had a great Thanksgiving. Those of you who did in Canada another month and all that sort of stuff, great. But just remember to be thankful, right? Thankful for such a great community, the games and all that sort of stuff. But you know, all the other blessings we have in life. So thanks for watching this. Again, I'm Brian Drake with the latest retro here on the Dice Tower. Make sure to check out our other videos. Till then, we'll see you.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching the Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.